All right, everyone, this is the Lab 2 heat of solutions. And so the safety information and then the required equipment. So for us, because the Part 1 procedures ask you to do qualitative data, right? So it's more of a sensation and what you feel. We're going to go ahead and skip that part. Right, so the salts that we mix together with water is KCl and CaCl for you to see whether it was warm or cold. And for many folks, the KCl was the cool one and the CaCl was the warm one. Okay, so we're moving on to part 2. And we're going to start off with KCl, and then we're going to move to CaCl, and afterwards we're going to do NaCl and MgCl. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So for part 2, the first step, so step number 9 is fill a 100 milliliter graduated cylinder with 50 milliliters of water. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. Right, and so 50 is right here. All right, perfect. So the next one says set up the ring stand, clamp, and calorimeter as shown in the picture on the right. So it's this image over here, and that is what we have over here. So all we need to do is move this calorimeter and put the thermometer in here. So, okay, and so our calorimeter is set up. The next one is pour the water into the inner styrofoam calorimeter cup. So this is 2 styrofoam cups, and we're going to go ahead and pour the water into that first one. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to measure out 7 grams. And for us, the first one that we're doing is KCl. So we're going to measure out 7 grams of KCl. Right? Potassium chloride, KCl. All right, and so we have very close, 7.03. And so the appearance, we're going to record that in the data table number 1. So just how does KCl look? Okay. All right. And so the next step is record the initial temperature of the water on the data table before you add the salt. So the thermometer is set up, and right here we have our LabQuest, and it's measuring out the temperature of the water that we have inside the calorimeter. Right, and we see that it's not moving. We're moving slightly, right, back and forth, but it seems to stay at 21.4 a little bit longer. So for the KCL, the initial, we're going to put 21.4, and it's in degrees Celsius. Okay, so now the next step is we're going to add our salt, so it should be KCL into the water, and quickly close the lid. We're going to click the green play button on our LabQuest to make sure that the thermometer is clamped tightly and that it touches or barely touches the bottom of the cup. Right? So making sure that it's submerged. Okay. So as soon as we put in the salt, we're going to click the green play button. All right, and then while we monitor the temperature, we're also going to make sure that we're swirling it around, so that way the salt is dissolving into the water, and we're seeing what happens to the temperature of the salt. All right, so this is what our graph looks like at the end. And so the final temperature that we're going to write for this is going to be our lowest or highest temperature. As we can see, this graph is going down, so that means that we're going to be recording our lowest temperature. So to me, I see a low peak over here and a low peak over here. So I'm going to go ahead and check this out. And that was about 14.6. How about this peak over here? Right, 14.5. So let's go ahead and put 14.5 as our final. All right, and right here, for the temperature difference, you'll go ahead and do that, but you're going to take the final, so that's going to be 14.5 minus the initial, which is 21.4, and let's go ahead and take a look. 14.5 minus 21.4 equals, and that's going to be negative 6.9. So the negative just means that the temperature went down. If it was positive, that would just mean the temperature goes up. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to try to draw this graph. It doesn't have to be perfect, but somewhat. So it starts kind of like up here and then kind of zigzags, and then it goes down. Then it kind of peaks, and then like that, and then it peaks again, and then it starts going up. Right, and that is our data for KCl. So now you all are going to determine, all right, is this endothermic or exothermic? One reminder is that the thermometer is part of the surroundings, right? So just think about that. If the thermometer goes low, right, the surroundings goes low, which one is it, endothermic or exothermic, right? You determine this. All right. Okay, so for our next salt, we are going to repeat, and like I told you all, the next one is going to be CaCl2. So again, come back at the top. We're going to fill our 100 milliliter graduated cylinder up to 50. Right, so it's going to be right here. Okay, so our ring stand is already set up, so we're going to pour the water into the styrofoam. Right, and then you all didn't see it, but we took out the water that was previously there. So this is new water, and it's a clean styrofoam cup. All right, so after that, we're going to weigh out 7 grams of our salt, and remember, we are doing CaCl2, so calcium chloride. Right, and we got 7.05, really close. Okay, so record its appearance in the data. So what does it look like? Okay. All right, so now we're going to record the initial temperature of the water in the data table. So let's go ahead, take a look at our LabQuest. All right, let's make sure that, okay, so 20.0 is what we're starting off with, calcium chloride, so 20.0. All right, so now we're going to add the NaCl, and we'll quickly close the lid, and then we're going to press the play button on our LabQuest and watch to see what the graph looks like. So let's move it to the graph, and as soon as we pour it in, we're going to push play. Okay, so there we go, and push play. We're going to discard the previous information, and it's going to record. Right, so making sure that we're swirling it around the entire time. Right, and if you want to look at the numbers, right, so 31, it looks like it's going up, so we're going to record the highest temperature, 33.5. And we're done. So it looks like 35.5 is the highest temperature that we got. So we're going to go ahead and put 35.5. And then we are going to one sec. We're going to draw out our graph. So it started down here, and we can also put the 20.0. It started off down here and kind of did a little zigzag and then a curve and then stayed about the same. All right. So now the last thing that we're going to do for this one is we're going to take the final temperature minus the initial. So that's going to be 35.5 minus 20. So 35.5 minus 20.0.
When you go the other side, make sure the floor is wet.
All right, so it looks like it's 15.5. So 15.5 is the temperature difference. 15.5, and this is a positive, so that means that the temperature went up. So again, you determine whether it's endo or exothermic here. And again, a reminder, the thermometer is part of the environment, of the surroundings. So if the temperature increases in the surroundings, what is it? Is it endothermic or exothermic? Okay. Then the next one we are going to do is NaCl. Okay, so now the salt that we're going to do is NaCl, right? We last left off, all we need to do was NaCl and MgCl2. So let's go ahead and get started with NaCl. So we have our ring stand over here. It's already connected to our LabQuest thermometer. We're going to pour it into the styrofoam cup. And then after that, we're going to measure out the 7 grams of NaCl. So let's go ahead and pour the water into the styrofoam cup. Right, and then 7 grams of NaCl, sodium chloride. There we go. 7.00 grams. Awesome, Mr. Lee. All right, so from there, if we haven't already done so, we're going to record the appearance of it on the data table. So what does it look like? Okay, and record that into your data table. So from there, we're going to record the initial temperature of the water into our data table. So right here, without the salt, the initial temperature for the water is 20.3 degrees Celsius. So that's what we're going to write down. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we're going to add the NaCl, and then we're going to quickly close the lid and press the green play button so that way we can take a look at our graph. Right. So press the green play button. And we're going to move this continuously. All right, so we started at 20.3 and it looks like it's going down. So we're going to not only look at the graph, but also look at the temperature. All right. So the lowest temperature we saw was 18.5. Okay, and so now this is what our graph looks like. So we're going to go ahead and kind of draw that. So it looks like it goes pretty down at the beginning and then kind of starts coming up and kind of leveling off. Okay. So for NaCl, right, our final temperature was 18.5, and we're going to subtract it from 20.3. So let's go ahead and use our calculator. 18.5 minus 20.3. That equals negative 1.8. So negative 1.8. Again, the negative just means we went down in temperature. And then by how much? 1.8. All right, so now the last one is magnesium chloride. We already have the 50 milliliters of water. And we're finishing up measuring out the 7 grams. There we go. Okay, so record what it looks like. And that's going to be in table 1. So that's step number 12 for each of the salts. Okay, so now we're going to pour in the water and record the initial temperature. Right, so in our LabQuest, let's go ahead and go back to the regular temperature. Okay, so it looks like the initial temperature is 20.4. So let's go ahead and put that. Okay, so now we are going to put in the salt and then click play. Okay. Okay, so now we see the temperature going up, right? We started at 20.4, we see it going up to 26. And we're going to continue to monitor this. 26.6 is the 26.7 is the highest so far. Alrighty, so the highest we got was 27.7, and now let's go ahead and record our graph. So our graph kind of starts down here, it kind of spikes up, and then kind of immediately goes down, and then starts doing this curve. Right, something like that, very similar. Okay, so now let's go ahead and find the temperature difference, right? The change in the temperature. So we're going to take the final minus initial. That's going to be 27.7 minus 20.4. Let's go ahead and plug that into our calculator. So again, it's 27.7 minus 20.4. And that is 7.3. So 7.3, and it's a positive, so that means our temperature increased. So again, determine whether this is an endo or exothermic reaction, depending on whether the temperature dropped or temperature increased. Okay, so you have all of your data that you need to then complete the analysis questions over here and complete the CER. Make sure that you're looking at the rubric for the CER and let either me or Mr. Lee know if you have any questions. All right, thank you all.